this rapid growth and then the rise of technology allowing firms to scale out is really going to put pressure on small firms, which is why small firms, like I said, need to take this approach of, I'm just going to grow because I'm either going to grow or I'm going to wait for someone to put me out of business.
You're listening to the Legal Mastermind Podcast with your hosts, Ryan Klein and Chase Williams, the go-to podcast for learning from the experts in the legal community about effective ways to grow and manage your law firm.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Legal Mastermind Podcast. My name is Ryan Klein, as always, co-host Chase Williams. Always excited. We have such great guests, and being in the spirit of maintaining that track record, we have Luke Ciciliano with us. Luke, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing really well. We're looking forward to chatting. And just to preface real quick, a little bit of Luke's background. Luke is a front-end developer. He has co-founded SEO for Lawyers. He's also co-founded Modern Website Design, which caters to small and medium-sized businesses. And Luke writes a lot and has been featured in other podcasts and other publications, talking and writing extensively on business trends, specifically in law. So that's a great starting point. Let's talk about business trends. For first business trend, we can start with this one. We'll keep it broad, and then we'll start honing in on specifics. We can talk about maybe one business trend that you find to be the most interesting that you're seeing today as far as it pertaining to law firms.
Yeah, what I would say is the most interesting trend right now in the law is what is essentially the rapid consolidation of law firms. In other words, firms of all sizes merging together, whether it's, your quote unquote big law firms merging together, or, your 5 attorney firms becoming 9 attorney firms, or, and everything in between. And the legal industry has been consolidating at an increasing rate for several years now. That started in 2013. 2013 set a record for law firm mergers. That record was eclipsed in 2015. It was eclipsed again in 2017. It was eclipsed again in 2018. And then I know for the first part of this year, mergers were off to a fast start again before tapering off a little bit. So you're definitely seeing extreme consolidation in the legal space, meaning there's just simply going to be fewer and fewer law firms out there, and then those firms are going to be larger and larger in size. Really, the reason for that, more than anything else, is a decline in the demand for legal services. And I can get more into that if you want, but suffice to say, there's a across the board decline in the demand for legal services. And it's just economics, and it's what happens in any industry. When an industry is mature and there aren't new customers to be had, so to speak, companies tend to grow by buying up their competition or merging with their competition. And now you're seeing that trend in the law, which is why you're seeing, such consolidation in the legal field.
So in our industry, digital marketing, we see that happens, big guys buying out the small guys. And I guess I don't really hear about it too much with legal, and it's definitely an interesting concept. So do you see this happening with B2C, like your criminal defense, maybe like family and personal injury, or is it more exclusive to B2B, like your mergers, acquisitions, intellectual property, commercial litigation, or is it everything?
It's top to bottom. So again, your big, for lack of a better word, mega law firms are merging at a rapid pace, but you're even seeing an increasing number of two solos partnering up because maybe they're struggling a little bit, and all the way up to a couple of 4 attorney firms merging together. It's really in all areas of law, and it's not just like your business related law, your business only law firms, or criminal defense only law firms, or whatever. Really, every area of law is kind of starting to see this pretty quick consolidation.
That's when it's personal injury and you see the law firm is 8 partners' names. Is that a good example?
Yeah. And it's also a good example of it would be, like, I actually have a client who's merging. I have a client who runs a law firm, and he's merging with other firms right now, where it was my client and 3 other attorneys in his firm. He was the named attorney. He had 3 associates working for him, and now he's merging his firm with 2 other ones. So, and it's going to be, I'm going off memory when I say this, but it's going to be something along the lines where you're going to have like 3 named partners and 10 associates now, or something like that. So it's like I said, it's really everything from the two solos merging together to the big mega firms merging and everything in between. You're just seeing a rapid consolidation in the legal field. And really, the reason for this consolidation is just, like I said, a decline in the demand for legal services. And as a result, people are merging together, sometimes as a way of splitting expenses and like the really small firm situations. And the bigger the firms get, the more they're essentially merging with and gobbling up other firms as a way of growing revenue. And that decline in legal services is stemming from several areas. I mean, just to give you the high points of that, because I mean, that's something I could talk about easily for an hour. Like in personal injury, for example, when I say the demand for legal services are declining, you have to realize that because of improvements in automotive technology, cars are getting safer and safer and safer and have been for a long time. For example, in 1998, a little over 41,000 people died in car accidents, in the United States. In 2008, that number was down to 37,000, even though the population was much bigger and people drove many more miles. 10 years later, so I'm going in 10-year increments here. 10 years later, in 2018, the number had gone from 37,000 to 36,000. But the thing you got to remember, so that might sound like a small decline, but the thing you have to remember there is that in 2008, we were in the depths of the financial crisis, and most people weren't driving as much during that time. And the deaths per mile driven actually dropped substantially, like over those 10 years. And that's a trend that's just continuing. So that's an example of work drying up for personal injury lawyers. In family law, for example, the marriage rate has been dropping in this country for years. As a result of that, in 2007, roughly 856,000 divorce cases were filed in the U.S. But again, the marriage rate has been dropping, so fewer marriages means fewer divorces. So in 2007, where you have 856,000 divorces in the U.S., 10 years later in 2017, you only have 787,000. If you look at the number of cases filed with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission because of the rise of automation in this country, that's been dropping over time as well. So the number of cases being filed in all kinds of different areas is actually dropping. And those are just some examples I gave you. I mean, we can get into why there's less work in business law and in a bunch of other areas. But the interesting thing is, while the work for attorneys to do is dropping, the number of attorneys in the country is actually increasing very quickly, which, so you keep getting this increasing surplus of attorney labor, for lack of a better word, and a decreasing amount of work for them to do. And that's what's made it essentially impossible for law firms to grow organically at this point. So to the extent firms are going to grow, they're going to grow by consolidating and gobbling up their competition.
So on the topic of mergers, so what would a large firm do? What would be the first steps that they would take if they wanted to acquire a smaller firm?
The biggest thing, I think, if one firm wants to acquire another one, is really the people that would need the most help with that would be like your mid-sized firms. Like maybe you're anywhere from 5 to 10 attorneys total in the firm, and they think they want to partner with somebody else or merge with somebody else. And unfortunately, a lot of times attorneys will think it just makes sense, and they'll just do a partnership or do a merger without really getting into the books and getting into the understanding of this, if this makes sense or not. The first thing I would say they should do is actually get a valuation and an understanding of what it is they're acquiring. For example, like attorney one might just want to get attorney two's practice, thinking, attorney two has a lot of clients or something like that, without stopping to think of, what am I actually buying? Because sure, if attorney two has a lot of clients, but attorney two gets all those clients through a lead service, well, attorney one can sign up the lead service himself. Right. I mean, there's no need for them to acquire a firm just to pick up somebody else's advertising bill, so to speak.
Sure.
So the big thing would be to find out what is it they're buying. Like, are they buying a firm with like, for example, are they buying a firm with a really strong web presence that can bring in clients on its own, and things of that nature. So I would say the biggest thing would be understand what you're actually buying and actually say, what is the value in, like, what am I buying? If that makes sense.
Sure. And what kind of multiples are you seeing? Is it sort of all across the board?
To be honest, what I see in a lot of the smaller firms that I deal with, more than anything, I think I see attorneys just not doing the math at all. Like as opposed to considering multiples, like if that makes sense. Getting back to the example I just gave where, two attorneys think, oh, it makes sense for us to partner up, and they've never looked at each other's books. They're not looking at revenues. They're not looking at sources of revenues or anything else. They're just kind of blindly thinking it makes sense to partner up or to join their firms together. I've had conversations with some of my clients where they've said, hey, this attorney approached me and they're thinking of, they're proposing a partnership, and I think it makes sense. And then when I kind of go over the numbers with them, my clients realize, oh, it doesn't make sense. And then they don't do it. So more than anything, I would say the trend in your smaller law firms, and like in your small, like local kind of firms, is people just partnering up and merging together as a way of keeping their businesses going and growing their business without really doing the math at all, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned briefly someone might want to acquire a firm just for their website and the SEO value maybe of some keywords that they're ranking for. When you're comparing that to some prices that some people are paying for leads via, third-party resources or even on AdWords, that might even make sense.
Well, and when you think of it like this, I mean, as opposed here's how I propose attorneys think about this. Let's just say there's Attorney Joe out there, and I'm thinking of I'm an attorney, and I'm thinking of acquiring Attorney Joe's business. Like let's say Attorney Joe. We're not even going to look at what he ranks for particular terms. Let's just look at traffic, right? Let's just say Attorney Joe's website generates, I'm making up a round number to make the point simple. Let's say Attorney Joe's website generates 500 organic clicks a month. And now let's say that, let's say in my area of practice and in my locale, let's say if I was doing pay-per-click marketing, I would probably average $15 a click, let's say. Okay. So if I want an extra 500 clicks a month, which is what Attorney Joe's website is getting, and and if I got to pay $15 a click for it, right? Well, now we're talking about, $7,500 a month in pay-per-click advertising, right? So I can say, all right, I can buy up Joe's practice, which includes his website, or I can sign up this pay-per-click myself at $7,500 a month. So then you can use that $7,500 a month to try to start figuring out what Joe's practice is worth, because you're getting that asset out of it. Okay. So in other words, over 12 months, if I want that level of exposure, I'd have to pay $90,000 in pay-per-click advertising. And then at the end of the day, I don't own anything. Right? I don't own Joe's website. If I do the pay-per-click route, I don't own Joe's website. So thinking in terms of how much money I can save by, acquiring somebody else's firm with a strong web presence versus just doing the pay-per-click marketing on my own can make a lot of sense for some law firms.
That does make a lot of sense, because it's interesting when you evaluate organic from a keyword standpoint. So, we're talking about pay-per-click, how much the keywords are worth, how much you would get it from the website and the web presence and just the awareness of the firm online. And then you can get it from short tail keywords, long tail keywords. But then there's also just the overall notoriety of the firm itself and its brand name. And then that brand name could probably be evaluated how often that's searched itself to kind of evaluate some sort of online presence value overall.
I would say yes and no to that. I mean, if you've got a firm that's got a really long-standing reputation in a particular area, then I think that brand has a lot of value to it. But if you're just talking about Joe Lawyer's firm and Joe Lawyer has a strong web presence, let's say, the way I would personally value that is to say, what's the firm worth once I take Joe out of it, right? Because if I buy the firm, Joe can quit and go work somewhere at any time. So it's more of I'd value it more in terms of, I'm just making up a hypothetical here. Joe has a great web presence. Joe owns his building. What's the building worth? Put a value on the website? What's the website worth? Subtract out any debt the firm has. that's your assets minus, your liabilities, and then basically put a multiple on that is the way I would do it. The big thing to really be risky, that's really risky, is a lot of times that in law firms that branding doesn't transfer, for lack of a better word. If somebody thinks, the Joe law firm is a great firm, it's a great firm as long as Joe's in it, often than not. But once someone buys it, then that reputation can tend to change real fast.
Yeah, because I can imagine, we're talking about things that are just very money oriented, things that can be quantified pretty easily. But it's just so broad. We're getting, when people build up their business and everything comes with it for years and years and years. So when you kind of look at this situation where someone's trying to acquire or is negotiating terms for acquiring another law firm, once they've got maybe some of the valuation, like the hard money, I can equate this to money. How much are people considering things that they did, establishing just complete unique and just spectacular, core values and mission statements and processes and systems and relationships?
Those are all things that should go into an evaluation, but honestly, more often than not, they don't. I find it kind of interesting in law. Virtually, you guys deal with law firms, how it is. Virtually any attorney you talk to will openly admit to being bad at business. But then every law firm is patterned after other law firms. So call me crazy, but I don't think it's a good idea to pattern your business after that of somebody who openly admits to being bad at business. That bad at business approach is what a lot of attorneys, like I said earlier, is just what a lot of them take into these discussions. The overwhelming majority of calls I get from attorneys that tell me that they're thinking of partnering up with somebody else, their analysis of it really does start and end with, this attorney approached me, they want to partner up, they have a good reputation. As far as I know, they have a good reputation in the legal community, and I think they have a good practice. What do you think? Is it a good idea? And they're asking me, is it a good idea? And then I'll ask them, okay, well, what's the other attorney's firm do in revenue, every year? I don't know. Have you gotten their financial statements? No. Where are they getting their clients from? I don't know. I think they're getting them from a lead service. I tend to have those conversations a lot. So the big thing I would say to any attorney, if they're thinking of buying a firm, or if they're thinking of just partnering with another lawyer or anything in between, the big thing I would say to a lawyer in that regard is do your due diligence. Don't just partner up with somebody. So in other words, get 2 years worth of financial statements, see 2 years worth of tax returns, see 2 years worth of bank statements. So, if you're buying a firm or merging with a firm, does that firm have a bunch of debt associated with it? Where is the inflow of cases coming from in that firm? In other words, like I said earlier, if they're just paying for a lead service, well, you can pay for the lead service yourself. And there's no point to buy somebody else's bill, essentially. So doing that due diligence is the biggest thing I would say to any attorney thinking of partnering up with somebody else. And then, after they've done that due diligence, then they can really kind of sit down and start to have an intelligent conversation about, does this make sense from kind of like a business synergy standpoint, right? Because, okay, partnering with somebody else, maybe they bring something unique to the table that will allow me to handle more cases or something of that sort. So, do they have really good systems in place and all that? But so the first thing is to really get your arms around what is it you're actually buying, and then go into that analysis of, is it a good fit?
At this point, we've established some of the reasons why, how to kind of observe it a little bit more logically. And then at this point, we're talking about, okay, since this is a trend that makes sense and it's moving in that direction, what are we going to start seeing from law firms, or what's an average law firm going to start looking like if that's a trend that continues?
Yeah, well, and this trend's not just continuing, this trend's accelerating. And the biggest thing you're going to see from law firms going forward is kind of the idea of go big or go home. And what I mean by that is law firms are going to have to say, I'm running a business, I'm going to grow this business as large as I can, and I'm just going to keep on growing it. Quite a few attorneys traditionally treat their practice kind of like owning a job. And by that, I mean, someone's like a solo and, they're happy being a solo and they just want to kind of stay that way. Or, maybe they have a 2 or 3 attorney firm and they're kind of happy at that level. they don't want to grow to the point of, taking over the world, so to speak. Well, as the amount of work there is for attorneys to do keeps contracting, and it is going to keep contracting, and as other firms out there keep gobbling up their competition, it really becomes a go big or go home kind of thing, in the sense that I'm going to grow my firm and just in perpetuity and keep growing, or I'm just waiting for someone to put me out of business. And it really is an either or thing. That's what I would say is one of the big things that most attorneys need to be aware of because of these business trends. So and that's really for a few reasons. Number one is, as law firms get bigger and bigger and bigger, which is happening, the bigger a firm gets, the more efficiently that firm can operate, the more they can scale out and offer reduced rates, things of that nature, and that puts more and more pressure on your smaller firms. And the other thing is, just due to improvements in technology, firms can scale up much bigger than they ever have before. It's really easy for someone to essentially span state lines at this point compared to the past. Like if you were to look at a firm that calls itself the Law Store, I think they're in 3 states at this point, and in quite a few locations in 3 states, and expanding rapidly. And this is a firm that entirely focuses on, providing your kind of small routine services, like writing a simple will, or doing an uncontested divorce, or things like that, kind of your things you can churn out. So you're going to start to see a lot of law firms that are extremely large in scale and but really focus on providing the more basic services, kind of like almost like what H&R Block does with tax returns. And that's going to put pressure on your traditional law firms, in the sense that, take a traditional family law firm, for example. Well, if that firm loses all their uncontested divorces and routine matters to what are going to be these large national firms, that's going to put a big crunch on the traditional law firm's bottom line. Even though, they might handle the high end litigation and stuff like that, they'll realize real fast how much those little small things contribute to the bottom line. So this rapid growth and then the rise of technology allowing firms to scale out is really going to put pressure on small firms, which is why small firms, like I said, need to take this approach of, I'm just going to grow, because I'm either going to grow or I'm going to wait for someone to put me out of business.
So once a small firm gets to that point where it's like, I can't grow any further and I want to be acquired by, a medium to large size firm, what should they do?
I don't think anyone should ever take the standpoint of, I want to be acquired. I mean, someone should take the standpoint of, I want to grow and keep growing. And then after that, I want to grow some more. And then someone will come along, and either A, you're going to grow and become the acquirer, or B, you're going to grow to the point where someone just approaches you organically and wants to buy your firm. That's true whether it's in tech or whether it's in law, or you name it. You get a lot of people in any industry that say, I want to be acquired, and those are the ones that tend to struggle with getting acquired, because they're so focused on getting acquired that they're not focused on just building up a business that somebody would want to acquire in the first place. So just growing that business as much as one can, like I said, either makes it, in this case, a law firm, either makes the law firm the acquirer, or it just results in someone approaching them organically.
Any last things that people should consider based off the conversation? Maybe any sort of referrals or resources or references to maybe learn a little bit more about you, I'm probably going to refer them to the articles that you sent me, because that's also elaborates more of the points that we're discussing today. But are there any key takeaways based off of this topic that you can leave the audience with?
Some of the tips I would put out there for attorneys, and they may not even be all that specific, as more of statements of things to do, is number one, understand that these trends are happening and your firm is not going to be immune to it. So it really is a matter of saying, okay, I'm going to learn to get better at business. I'm going to learn how to scale my firm out, things of that nature. And too often attorneys say, well, I'm just not good at business. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a business person. Well, there's no reason why someone can't learn to be better at business. I mean, just pick up every book you can get from every entrepreneur and so on and so forth, and just really put the time into it. That would be my big advice.
So Luke, what's the best way for listeners to get in contact with you if they have any follow-up questions or possibly want to hire you to help them with this process?
If somebody wants to reach out to us, they can give us a call at Modern Website Design. That number is 937-301-6558, or they can just visit our website. It's modern-website.design. And I mean, we work with businesses of all sizes, and we work with a lot of law firms also. People can just reach out, and we're always happy to take the time to talk to people. It doesn't really matter if they're our customer or not. I mean, we work, we give advice to people all the time who aren't our clients. So just, feel free to reach out to us.
Thanks for listening to the Legal Mastermind podcast. If you're interested in working with Ryan and Chase, please email mastermind@marketmymarket.com. Make sure to join the free mastermind group for growing and managing your firm at lawfirmmastermind.com. Ryan Klein and Chase Williams are the managing partners at Market My Market, one of the top legal marketing companies in the United States.